合唱。ナモアミダ仏。
ナモアミダ仏。
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 ナモアミダ仏。ナマンダーツ。ナマンダーツ。
三部上。部上。みだんよらんにうどじょう三元部上釈迦如来にうどじょう三元部上ちぽう如来にうどじょう三元Juseige Gagon Chosegan ひしむ浄土志願不満足政府上昇が無良好不意大摂取不採ショッピング政府上昇が子上仏道妙所長寺法空教未所門政府上昇が利欲人少年上映主本業しぐむ浄土一生天人師人類現代公不償無才道少女三苦名交際集約難回避知恵言滅死根門案閉塞小悪道通達全宗門高僧上満足いよろじぽ日願中十期天候音不言一種解放像公正功徳法上大集中説法ししく供養一切分具足修徳本元年心上満徳意三概用女仏無芸地通達未不詳感覚営利投資最小損志願や交換大戦の感動国書天にとうち妙見ナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブ Namandabu. Namandabu. Gam Nishikudoku Byondon Seisai Dohonbo Daishin Ojo Namo Amida Buddha.
Namo Amida Buddha.
Namo Amida
Namo Amida Buddha.
Namo Amida
Namo
Buddha.
Buddha. Namanda. 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 Today we are remembering our September Shotsuki families. Please join me in Gassho as I read the Shotsuki names. If you have a family member on this list, please feel free to Oshoko once a name's been read. And if there's a name that has been read, please keep them in your thoughts as you Oshoko at your home Obutsudan. Frank Higa, Hitoshi Tawada, John Aikyo Tawada, Sueki Jo Murahata, Tom Sasaki, Harry Nita, Art Yoshimura, Harry Hiroshi Umemoto, Amy Tsumura, Fujie Nishi, Goro and Dorothy Nita, Don Tsuchimoto, Kazuchiko Sakamoto, Sally Sakamoto, Shiz Peterson. Please join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Buddha. Namo Amida Buddha. Namo Amida Buddha. Namanda Buddha. Namanda Buddha. Namanda Buddha. Hey everybody! It's time to celebrate all of our great September birthdays out there. So please join myself and Reverend Thompson in a happy and fun round of happy birthday, dear friends. Here we go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear friends. Happy birthday to you. Yay. Happy birthday. Please join me in Gassho as I read the meditation. The Buddha surrounds all persons in all forms of life with infinite love and compassion. Particularly, the Buddha sends forth his loving thoughts to those in suffering and sorrow. To all those in doubt and ignorance, to all those who are striving to attain truth, and to those whose feet are standing close to the great change we call death. The Buddha sends forth oceans of wisdom, mercy, and love. Namo Amida Buddha. Namo Amida Buddha. Namo Amida Buddha. Namanda Buddha. Namanda Buddha. Namanda Buddha. Namanda Buddha.
Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to today's service. We'll go ahead and open with Gassho. Namo Amida Buddha. Namo Amida Buddha. Namo Amida Buddha. Naman. Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today for another wonderful TSDBT YouTube service. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about the story of the White Path, or the parable of the White Path. And this was for our Ohigan service. And just a short recap, it's the story of a traveler who is traveling through a vast wilderness, and this traveler is surrounded by all manner of difficulties. But as the traveler continues on, they see a path, and while this path still has difficulties surrounding it, the traveler becomes aware that on one side is the encouraging voice of Shakyamuni Buddha, and on the other side, the compassionate calling voice of Amida Sama. And these voices are trying to encourage the traveler to move forward on this very narrow but possible to traverse path. And the idea is that even though we have all of these difficulties that we are constantly working through, we have an encouraging voice that is always behind us, and an encouraging voice that is always calling us to the great Pure Land of enlightenment, or at least to the awakening of our very own selves. Now, at the end of this story, it's one of my favorites because even though it's very, very scary the whole time, there are beasts and bugs and bandits, there are fiery rivers and huge rivers of water surrounding the traveler, and the traveler is afraid and unsure of what to do. But upon hearing the encouragement from the one shore and the call from the other, the traveler becomes firmly resolute in heart and mind and decides to take the path. And at the end, the last line says that the traveler meets their good friend and their joy is boundless, meaning that they have come to the great wisdom compassion of Amida Buddha, and the joy they receive and feel is indeed boundless. Now, I wanted to talk about that part in particular. I came across a line from a poet called Rumi, which one of my favorites, and the line from this poem says, "Stay together, friends. Don't scatter and sleep. Our friendship is made of being awake." And I came across this one recently and really liked it because it reminded me of this parable of the White Path. The idea that we are traveling through all of these difficulties throughout our lives, and sometimes it makes us want to run, it makes us want to scatter, and even it can make us very, very sleepy. Watching things like the debates this week made me very scattered and very sleepy, and that's about all I wanted to do. However, facing things head on means that we do have to be awake. And when I think of things like this traveler meeting their good friend and immediately feeling all of this joy, I can see too that it's very, very similar. We traverse these paths that can be very difficult, that make us just sort of want to keep away from them as much as we can. But our friendship with the Buddha comes from being awake, comes from being aware of all of these difficulties, but also ready to sort of face them without curling up and going into hibernation, but instead being wide awake and ready to go. Recently, I had an occurrence. There's a friend of mine that I've known since we were in high school. So that's been over 20 years now. And, we've done what a lot of friends do at this point. There are times when you're very, very close and times when life sort of drifts you apart a little bit, but we had stayed in touch quite often. However, in recent years, she has been having a lot of difficulty and unfortunately made her kind of selfish and made her, it turned into a thing where every time that we talked, we never talked about anything but what she was going through. And to the point where sometimes she would never even ask how I was doing and just kind of launch into. And so it made me a little tired, a little exhausted, because it was a lot to take on. And the expectation was that I would be there at every moment, ready to help and drop everything no matter what. And it got to the point where it was very tiring because, I have other things. I had a relationship. I have my daughter. I have my home. I have my job. And so, when you're an adult, you can't just drop everything all the time, no matter how much we want to. And so there was a point where, she was accusing me constantly of being a terrible friend because I wouldn't answer texts within 5 minutes, or, I would have to wait a day to call her back because I know I'd be on the phone for 3 hours and sometimes didn't have that time to devote. And so I began to feel very, very bad about myself because I began to be convinced that I was a terrible person for not doing these things and for not picking up the slack. And unfortunately, she just kept sort of spiraling down. And as much as I wanted to help, there was nothing I could do because the problems that she was having were not even within my wheelhouse professionally. And so I had to start taking stock of things because I was told by both my daughter, who has known this woman her whole life, and my boyfriend that, this was something that every time I would go to help, I would come home very sad and very upset at myself because I was made to feel like I never did anything and that I was a terrible person. And so it was suggested maybe I start evaluating this friendship. And as I began to think that, yes, our friendship at this point was probably made of nostalgia, that we shared things when we were in high school and even in our early 20s that made us good friends. But over the years, sometimes people part, the roads diverge, and you have to go your own way. And yet, both of us were kind of clinging to this nostalgia aspect, but the friendship was making us sleepy almost, kind of blind and unaware. She was starting to depend on me so consistently that it was causing her suffering, that my life path made it so I couldn't be there all the time, 24 hours a day. And my life path had taken me in a different direction to where I was trying to balance everything and not feeling like I was able to, and kind of had someone who kept telling me that this was a terrible thing for me to do. And in reflecting on times when we had hung out, I started to realize that I couldn't even have a differing opinion on a movie star, that I would say, oh, I don't care for that person, and she would take it as a personal insult, that, again, I was not being a good friend because of that. And it was me. I can only control my own reactions. But the fact that what was happening was making me sad, and even though I was thinking I need to hold on to this because she is an old friend, that we've been together for so long, and I should keep this friendship going. But I didn't want to scatter. But I realized how asleep I was, that in order for this friendship to truly work, we both needed to wake up. We needed to turn this into an adult friendship, something where we could share, something where we would be mutually helping each other if that was necessary, or mutually enjoying silences, or mutually able to disagree without it turning into an insult. And unfortunately, I tried to have this conversation and it just didn't work out. And as much as it hurt me to have to let that go, I had to remind myself that good friendships are made of us being awake, that sometimes it's hard and we do want to just leave immediately, but I gave it a shot rather than ghosting her, as the kids say. I put forth an effort and it just didn't happen. And that's kind of what the parable of the white path is saying to us too. Things will be difficult, and sometimes we want to just lay down, or sometimes we want to run away because even though we know at the end of the path things will be fine, it looks too difficult and it's much easier for us to scatter. But when we come together and start to realize that our good friends, our true friends, are the ones like Shakyamuni Buddha on this shore, are the ones calling and encouraging us to move forward and to help us through these difficulties. And when we can hear a calling voice that's coming to us, that's encouraging us to move forward, to understand the difficulties, but also to understand the difficulties knowing that that friend will be with us the whole time. Like the line says, don't scatter in sleep. Our friendship is made of being awake. So as we consider and contemplate that story of the white path, remember that we always have encouragement behind us, no matter how difficult things get. We find our good friends. And when we hear the calling voice of the Buddha, the Namo Amida Butsu from that other shore, that voice is encouraging, but also reminding us that no matter the difficulties, I am here. My compassion and wisdom are always there surrounding you, and you will be encouraged and eventually make it to the other side where you will meet your good friend and your joy will be boundless. So thank you guys for joining us today, and we will go ahead and close this service with Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo.